Alright guys, welcome to your next video in learning MEL and how to create your own character UI. This time we're going to go over some UI elements instead of just the absolute basics. Again, I'm just going to be winging it completely here. I have nothing in mind right now, just going to start making some stuff. But as you can see, got my script editor open, and you know what else I'm going to get? I'm going to go ahead and get open my MEL command reference because I don't remember everything that all the different flags and syntaxes and stuff sometimes. But I'm going to go over here to the UI section. So click here, and now I can get all the different things I'm going to need, different panels, different controls, different layouts. We're going to be going over the layouts a lot because there's a lot of different ones out there, and each one of them can do something very unique. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Column layout will definitely be one of your best friends. I can tell you guys that much right now. But first things first, we need to create a window. Okay. Now the command for a window is quite simple. Actually, it's just window. Remember that all the whole syntax for the line has this, and then the flags, and then the semicolon. Well, we're going to talk about something new this time also. It's called internal naming. Basically, we want to give our UI objects a specific name. For those of you that know object-oriented programming, it's kind of like that, but a little bit different. It's more of a reference to the object. If you've ever used Flash, I believe that used that. But we're going to give it a specific name, so it'll be at the end of the line this time. If actually, why don't we go back in here and we'll check out the window command. Because at the very end, remember how this shows you kind of like the format for how to write the line. You have window right here, all the different flags that you can use in between, and at the very end it says string. Basically what this is saying is it's for an internal name that you're going to refer to it as. Now you'll see often that some people will do things like this, where they set a variable, and then we have string window, and then equals. And in these little backticks, that's the button next to your number 1 on your keyboard with the tilde. It's not an apostrophe. In between those, you'll have the command for the window, and it's kind of the same thing. Basically, you can refer to that window by using $window. That's one way of doing it. I prefer to do it just by using a specific internal name rather than a variable. It's kind of a personal preference thing. Some people are used to that format based on the programming language that they know. I'm just used to this other way. So basically what we're going to do is we'll have window, and then at the very end of the line will be the name of the window that we'll use to refer to it as. Now the reason why you name it is because if you ever need to query the window or edit the window or a button or anything, you're going to use that name, and it's very important that you do that. So I'll just call it my window. So I have a window now. Now there's nothing set up for it yet, but there is one other line we're going to need, and I'll put this at the very end, and it'll be show window, and then I'll give it a name, my window. So there you go. If I run that, we get a window. Now there's nothing set up in this window right now. All it has is just that. Now we can set up the height and the width and all sorts of other stuff to it, like what it looks like. Let me run that again, actually. Notice how it has the same exact title bar up here as like a Windows window would have. We can change that to be what's known as a toolbar or other things. I can say none of that at all. I can change the title. There's a lot of different things you can change. I highly suggest you just look through all these different things. There's quite a bit you can do up here. For instance, we'll do title. We can turn off the title bar if we wanted to. I can make it sizable. I can turn off the maximize button. All that kind of stuff if you really need to. I'll be using title for sure. I like to use what's it called, toolbox, because it gives you a different look to the title bar. I'm a little specific sometimes, a little anal retentive if you want to call it that. We'll be using width or with height actually, because it's just a quicker thing to use. But we're going to keep it simple. One thing that you will end up noticing about creating windows in Maya is every now and then the height and width that you set will not work. It's kind of a bug. There are ways to supposedly fix it. We'll try and go over those in class, but it's not 100% all the time. It will happen. Sometimes you'll have to resize your window, and then, hey, it'll work. Then you go to another computer, and then it's a completely different size. Regardless of how well you plan out your window, and you say, well, this area of the window is going to be 500 pixels wide, it may not work like So you'll be playing with numbers every now and then. But what we'll do is we'll just throw some flags in here. So I'll do, let me go back to that real quick. You can see with height, I'll click that so you can see. The short version is WH, so I will be using that. I kind of know some of these things already, so wait a second. Let's close that. I don't need that. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so dash WH with height, and then I just put, as it states right over here, it's telling me int space int. It's telling me that I do dash WH space the number of the width space the number of the height. So it's telling you the format. You'll see things like Boolean, which is a Boolean is an on-off type of thing, basically. But we'll get to that in just a minute, actually, when we do the title. So with height, let's say I want it to be 500 pixels by 500 pixels. And then I'll do title, and I'll give it a title, and we call it Dave's Amazing Window, something like that. All right. Now the other thing I wanted to do was that toolbox window. So what I'm going to do is dash TLB because I remember that one. And I can put either 1 or 0 or on or off. Let's try on. I believe I need to do that in quotes. We'll find out in a second. Yep, see, it gives me an error. So let's take that out. There you go. Notice the difference in the title area of the window. It's completely different. I just prefer this look sometimes, but if you do need a minimize button, notice it does not have one. So that is a little bit of a downside. I just kind of like the cleanliness of that look. But there's our window. It is 500 by 500. It looks like it at least. I can't tell without, bringing this a screenshot into Photoshop or something, but who cares? It's big enough for us to work in. Okay, so there's our window. Again, we have our own internal name, but there's one problem here. If I run this again, it says object's name is not unique, my window. Basically what it's saying is I can't create something that already exists with that same name. It's like saying having two objects in the same space named PSphere1. It just can't happen. So if we go back here, I'm going to close that real quick. What we need to do is add a very specific line to the beginning of our script here, and I call it the window query line. Basically, it's an if statement. An if statement is conditional, meaning if this is true, then do this. Well, basic logic, right? So this is the syntax for it. You'll use it pretty much every time you ever have a window. If, and then a backtick. Remember, that's the one next to the one. Window minus query minus exists. So it's basically saying if there's a window that exists by the name of my window, then you can close the parentheses. Basically, it's kind of an order of operations thing. If you remember from math, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, parentheses, exponents, multiply, division, add, subtract. In scripting, there are further orders of operations where it's basically saying, okay, I've got a parenthesis, cool, what's inside of it? Well, then I've got this line within backticks. The order it's doing here is it's going to say, okay, I'll calculate the result of this area within the backticks first, then I'll move on. It's like I said, just another order of operations. So in the result of this will either be basically true or false. So if this is true, delete UI, my window. And that is it. Now, I know I've said in the past video where if you have a for loop, you need to have the brackets and all that stuff. If you've only got one line following a for loop or an if statement, you don't need to do those. It's kind of a little wasted space. It's basically only going to do that first line. After that, there's nothing else in the if statement. So that is your window query line. Know it, use it, memorize it. You will use it every single time you create a UI, whether it's for your character or something that makes polycubes. I don't know. Okay, so now what I'll do, run that, run it again, no error, and I only have one copy of it because each time it's saying, okay, it exists, delete it. So that's the importance of that line. Make sure you put that in there. I'll probably end up repeating myself in class because I forget that line is in this video, but trust me guys, you're going to use it a lot. Alright, so let's move on. When you have a window, it's kind of just a placeholder. You can't put anything in that window yet until you create what's known as a layout. Now if you recall, let me go back here. We'll go down to layouts. See, all those different types are in there. The most common one you'll see is the column layout, and there's a good reason why. But I like to use a lot of these things just based on what I need. You'll recognize some of these based on their name. A tab layout you would recognize if you've ever seen it. If I go to the attribute editor real quick, let me get an object up or something. Go to the attribute editor. Notice how we have tabs? Well, that's a tab layout. We also have scroll layouts. Remember, that's what the scroll is for. This right here with this little, the ability to collapse and expand it, that is a frame layout. It has a lot more options. I like those for looks if you're going for aesthetics of your design, and I generally do because when I design a UI, I like to make it look good as well. I don't like just a bunch of things randomly placed around. There's also an important one called a grid layout, which basically, just like it sounds, it lines things up in a grid. You set how many spaces are there and all sorts of things. Through combinations of all of these, you can create a really nice looking UI, and I'll go a lot more in depth into them. I'll show you some examples. Maybe I'll post some on Scholar for you guys to see what I do just when organizing these things. Okay, so like I said, the simplest one is the column layout. A column layout is basically just an open area for you to put whatever you want in. It could be buttons, it could be forms, it could be radio buttons, whatever your heart desires, you can just throw them into the column layout. The problem with it is it's not exactly the most organized. The benefit of it, though, is that it allows you to put as much stuff in it as you want. It's actually a really an important point. Basically, you got to think of hierarchically, if that's even a word, but you got to think like a hierarchy here for when you're designing a layout, because the top of your hierarchy would be the window itself. Underneath that, you have your layouts. Underneath that, you have your UI elements. Okay, so think, a hierarchy. Um, it's going to be more complex than just 3 layers. You'll have a layout within a layout within a layout within a, and then there's buttons within that layout, and then a whole bunch of stuff. If Basically, what I'm saying here is parents and children. A column layout would be a parent of UI elements like these controls here. Um, and a column layout will allow for as many as you want. I'm sure there's a finite number there. I don't know it, but I could put 2,683 buttons in if I wanted to. The contrary to this would be something like a frame layout. A frame layout only allows for one child. Now you may be thinking back here, well, hey, this area looks like it has a lot more. This frame right here looks like it has a lot more than one object. Well, that's where we get into nesting layouts within layouts. A frame layout is more of this, oh, yeah, you can expand it and contract it. Well, that's cool looking and it's great for aesthetics. But what you do is that one child you're allowed to put in there, you throw a column layout in there, because then we can put as many as we want here. And for this example, I'm not going to go into that kind of stuff. Maybe if I get rambunctious later on, I've had a lot of coffee, we'll do that. But for now, what I'm going to throw in there is a simple column layout. Now, again, internal naming, very important. You may want to refer to this column at some point in time, whether to query a result of it or edit it for some strange reason. I've found lots of reasons to name stuff, but you really need to be specific on your naming. So I'll call this generally something like top column. That doesn't mean you have to call it that. You can call it Billy Bob for all I care. But I know that that is the topmost column layout in my script. Okay. Now I always tend to use what type of layout it is for the name. Even if it's a button, it's going to be this, and that button. That way I know what I'm talking about. You can also call it, like something like top CL, column layout. I just tend to use column. By the way, one thing, I'll probably have mentioned this before, but notice how I have this lowercase letter, uppercase letter. This is known as step capitalization. It's just a typical thing you'll see in programming. Sorry, I haven't mentioned that before. But column layout, top column. Now, of course, the column layout, much like everything else, has its own flags. You'll see quite a few right here. You can enable it, see if it exists, the height, the width, all that stuff. Again, some things just don't always work. It's specifically the width and height. It's a little touchy, but we're going to try it. I'm just going to set it to the same width and height as the window itself. So I'll go ahead and dash W. This does not have a width height as far as I'm aware of. I can go back and check. Maybe they've added one I never noticed. Nope, no width height. So double check those types of things. So now I've got a column layout with a width of 500 and height of 500. Doesn't exactly look very different, does it? The reason is because a column layout is just that. It's just a blank slate. So let me cancel that line out. I want to show you why I did this. Just create a button. Notice how it says cannot create UI object. Button 3. Why? There's no layout. Now that I've got that layout in there, now, sorry, I'll just start throwing stuff in there. Button, button, what else do I want? I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now, so I'll just throw 2 buttons in there. There you go. Neat, right? Maybe I'll just throw a text field. There you go, a text field. So these are just various UI elements, but now I can actually put them in there. And you know what? Why the hell not? Let's go ahead and do the frame layout thing, just so I can show you how to use one, because I really like the way they look. Not only because of the fact that they can collapse and expand, also because they have borders to them that you can edit. Let me go to the frame layout command for you. And where border style? There you go. Let's go to that. You can see in, etched out. And if what I'm basically talking about here is, let me minimize that. You see how this has kind of that little edge on the inside of it? That's what we're talking about. It's just aesthetics, but I like that kind of thing. So I'll go ahead and throw in frame layout, call it top frame. Now here's the thing. Let me actually put that within the column layout. Whenever I make a window, the first thing I always do is I throw a column layout in there. Why? So I can throw whatever the hell I want to in after that. So I'll create frame layout, top frame, and again, it's not always top frame. There'll be various things in there. I'll do width. I know it's going to end up being a little less than 500 here, based on a couple of reasons. So I'll just do that. And there you go. Notice how it's going outside of the window. This is where I get a little anal retentive, where I start playing with numbers. So I'll like drop it down to 490. You can see I'm just about there. Oop, I lost my script. Let me copy that and bring it back. So it'll be something like really weird, like 493, whatever. There you go. Okay, now notice it does not have the collapsible right now. I haven't told it it can be collapsible yet. So there it is, actually. Collapse. I can also set the border style, and we'll just play with some stuff. The label for it. Right now, the label that it uses, if you notice, comes right from the internal name. So let's go ahead and set some stuff up. Label. Let's call it. Let's go with the same theme. Any quotes? Dave's amazing frame layout. Collapsible. We'll say, oh, by the way, remember when I said on, off, 0, 1? True, false is also an option for a Boolean. It's either this or that. That's how a Boolean works. It's 2 options. So, CL true, it's going to be collapsible. And what was the other thing? Border style, dash BS. Let's see. There were a couple of options. We had, I think the one I prefer is etched in, if I recall correctly. So, take a look at that. Well, collapsible did not work. But let's take a look at that. Let's try. Am I using the wrong one? I am. I used collapse, not collapsible. CLL is what I need to do. See? Even your amazing teacher makes mistakes. There you go. Now it is collapsible. So that's a large benefit of it. I generally don't use it. I generally don't even have the label visible on these things. I just like it for the look of that edge. It's very silly, I know, but here's the thing about the frame layout. I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier. It can only have one child. So I can throw a button in there and like, oh my god, there's a button. That's just like the coolest thing ever. But watch what happens when I try to throw in another button. Oh no, too many children in layout. This is a very important one. You'll get this error a lot unless you start to learn your layouts. Basically, like I said, a layout can have a certain amount of children to it. In this case, the children are the buttons. A column layout will not have that problem. So I believe I did say it earlier, where I put a column layout immediately into a frame layout. So 493, we'll call this, I don't know, top frame column. Why not? You know, generally I'll have more creative names than this, but now I can throw as many things as I want in there. There you go. As many buttons as I want. Ta-da! And I can still collapse it. So that's how you use a frame layout. Um, Now, if I wanted, I can, let's see, what should we do next? Oh, I need to show you set parent. Set parent is a really important thing. Let's say I'm done with that section. I mean, if we look over here, you can see, well, there's a frame layout, there's another frame layout, there's another. They're all separate. It's part of a hierarchy. If I had a Wacom, I'd go and show you, you have at the very top, we have well, technically we have Maya at the very top. We have our window, my window. Next to that, we have a column layout. And then within that, we have a frame layout, and then within that, we have a column layout. Well, what if we want another frame layout that's in the same area as that first one, much like these are? It's on a different rung of the hierarchy. What we need to do is basically use this command called set parent, which will take us out of the current level that we're on, and it'll go to another one. The most common use of this command is just set parent dot dot semicolon. Now this, if you've ever used if you're used to older style computers with DOS, you're used to this one. This is an old method where you would like cd dot dot, and that would bring you up one level in a hierarchy. Kind of like if we're going through folders, you hit this up, that'll bring you up one level through the hierarchy. So that's basically what that's doing. Set parent dot dot semicolon brings you up one rung. Currently, we would be in the column layout. Let me put the buttons back in for the heck of it. Okay. So currently we're in the column layout rung. You hit set parent, it'll go back up to frame layout. Well, we don't want to be in that either. We want to be outside of that one, so we do set parent again. And now, because of that, we're back into top column. That's where we want to be. Now, if you look in here, we can go look up set parent. There it is. You can also say top level, or you can actually define which level to go to. Just look through the different options. Now, I just generally use the dot dot version, just myself. But there are other ways to do it, so just, know that. All right, we'll go back here. All right, so set parent dot dot. Let's do another frame layout. We'll do the same width. 493 label OMG, another amazing layout. This time I'm not going to make it collapsible, and I'm going to change the border style to, what was it, in, out? I think those were the other ones. There it is, in and out. Let's try those, why not? Just so you can see. And this will be whatever, next frame. I'm not very creative today on naming. I don't know why. Collapsible will not be true, so that little arrow thing will not show up. And I think that's all I need. So I'll make another column layout, and a couple of buttons. By the way, if you ever need to duplicate a line, like button, you can just highlight it, hold down Control, and do that. And now I'll run this. Invalid flag. Look at that. I didn't put a space in there. There you go. So now you can see how we're in that hierarchy. Now if I hit another, let's put another two set parents here after that frame layout. So that again is bringing us right back up to top column again. Remember, a column layout, I can throw whatever I want. A good example of this actually is right here. Notice how just floating in the middle of nowhere we have this little drop down box by itself. It's not it doesn't appear to be in any layout, but it's actually just floating in the main column layout of this area. All right, you'll start to recognize a lot of things as you look through these different UI elements and layouts. You'll start to say, "Hey, I remember seeing that in the attribute editor, or I remember seeing that in the render globals." Things like that. Okay, so let's see, what do we want to throw in there? Let's look at the controls. Heck, I could throw a time port in there or time control, and you can see your timeline at the bottom. I can throw symbol buttons, pictures. We will be using image and picture most likely later on. Sliders, if I really needed to do that. Let's see, what's the one I was looking for? Oh, I don't know. Let's just throw a checkbox. Why not? Okay, so checkbox, and I don't know what to call this. Whatever. Main check box. Let's check the flags for the checkbox. Where'd it go? We can probably put a label on there. There it is. Um, we can enable it, disable it, all that stuff. Oh, you don't need to see that. What did I want? Let's disable it. Why not? Enable 0. Okay, and label coolest check box ever. Okay. There it is. Notice how it's not enabled. This is something that I'll use every now and then just for labeling things or various uses. Okay. Now, another thing you can also do, I use this a lot for cheating. It's text. Basically, it's just going to put words in there. So, hello world. There you go. Okay. I don't think there was anything else that I wanted to cover in this video. If there is, I'll just make another video. But for now, this is just kind of an introduction to, buttons and layouts. Look through the stuff that's in the command reference because seriously, it is going to be your biggest help. All right. If you start looking throughout Maya, you'll recognize, these are a certain type of button up here. All these have names. All the UI elements that you see in Maya, you can make those. They're readily available for you. I mean, that's just a drop-down menu right there. These are just menus. We can add those to our own windows, and trust me, I use them all the time. Just explore things, okay? Until the next video, guys, good luck.